My name is Gary Grimm. I chair the Civic Life Committee of the Norristown Initiative, and we have today one of our leadership forums, and it's entitled the Home Rule Charter Study Commission, Meet the Candidates. But before we get into that, I'd like to mention that our next forum is scheduled for Saturday, April 19th. We'll be back here at the library. It will be entitled Meet Your Newly Elected Representatives. We are inviting our new Congressman, James Gerlach, State Representatives Jacqueline Grahala, and John Fichter, and Senator Connie Williams. And this will be their opportunity to meet their constituents here at the Norristown Initiative Forum. The words home rule charter have been tossed around a lot in the last few years. What I've found to be most interesting is the fact that the majority of the community has no more knowledge of what the home rule charter is than the fact that it consists of the laws of our government that we're supposed to be governed by. Hopefully today's forum can shed a little more light on the subject and educate the community on how our government operates. The home rule charter is nothing new. In fact, it is very old. The first home rule charter was our U.S. Constitution. Prior to that, some of our colonies had charters that established rules by which their elected officials ruled. There have been numerous amendments to the Constitution, most notably the Bill of Rights, and then in 1971, the granting of 18-year-olds the right to vote. All of the states have a home rule charter. In fact, I even have a copy of it here today, one for home rule in Pennsylvania. Present Norristown Home Rule Charter was enacted in November of 1984, and Norristown has not, until now, changed that for the last 20 years. Within the community, most of the discussion has centered around, does our government follow the charter, and what problems are inherent to the home rule charter language as it is now. I have read the charter. I think I understand what it says, but I don't know what alternatives there are to the home rule charter, having not read any. It at least appears to me to be clearly defined on how our government should operate. Our present council voted to create a referendum to put the question of the public to the public, should we change our present form of government? Based on a positive response to that by the voters will then choose 9 candidates. We'll then choose 9 candidates from those that have volunteered to serve without compensation to review our form of government and to make recommendations for the changes. Many of those candidates are here today, and they're going to introduce themselves to us and express their ideas and how they believe the commission should function. We have 12 candidates for the 9 slots that are available. Now, for a little background on how these individuals got here, to become a part of this group, all these individuals had to present a petition to the Board of Elections by March 11th of this year. It consisted of 2% of the voters in the last gubernatorial election. This comes to 116 signatures. Then, what is the primary for the general election for the rest of the candidates, we will have a final election which will be placed on the ballot to determine if we are going to have a revision of the home rule charter and the individuals that consist of this review board. This is not a primary for them, this is the final vote. So the message here is, we need to get out and vote if we have an interest in our home rule charter. This is probably one of the most misunderstood, underrated, yet important jobs an individual can have. What the commission decides to, in their process, which I believe takes a total of 9 months to go through, will determine how our government, for who knows how long in the future, we will operate our government. So today we are going to hear from the candidates in their own words what they expect to bring to and take from this study. As we know, laws are only as worthwhile when they are followed. A community with laws that are not followed is in chaos. So part of the equation is up to the general public to determine if they wish to change the laws. Another part of the equation will be, up to the commission to determine what these laws will be, and the last part of the equation will be for our government to ensure that the laws are followed. And as always, if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain. So if you do vote and you don't like the results, well, nobody wants to hear you complain anyway. Only a joke. We all know how much our elected officials love to hear from their constituents, especially right after they're elected. Now, there are some ground rules for the forum on how we conduct business, and as usual, there is a one question per individual from the audience to be asked. Once we go around, everyone is asked their one question. We then can go back to second questions. The idea being that we don't want any one individual to totally take over the educational process of the community. This is not a debate. There's no rebuttals from an individual to a candidate's answer. At approximately 11:15, we'll take a short 5-minute break to give everyone a chance to stretch their legs, get a cup of coffee, or visit the facilities. Then when we come back, we'll go straight into questions from the audience. So now we're going to hear a little introduction from each of the candidates. And I'll give you the general list first of all the candidates that are part of the voting process. Not all of them are here today, but at least we'll know who they are. We have Al Cianciulli, Michael Cook, William DeAngelis, Joseph DeDominic, Mary Ellen DeGregorio, Joseph Epifanio, Mary Epifanio, Helen M.C. Jones, Mitch Miller, Lee Peoples, P.D. Perry, and April Young. So the first individual we'll hear from today is our former mayor, Mr. Bill DeAngelis.
Good morning. The concept of the Home Rule Charter is that it stems from the notion that the government shall come from the people, not directly from the top. Everybody knows about Hussein, and he has absolute control over the government and all the people around him, and therefore he is in effect a dictator of sorts. And the concept of the Home Rule Charter is like the same as our national leaders did, our forefathers did in the 1700s when they gathered in Philadelphia and representing the various states decided that they would work best if they could work upon the principles of if the people would feel better about their government and would function better with government if it stemmed from their own thoughts, their own ideas, and their own desires. And that's the entire concept. And the hope of the Home Rule Charter for Norristown stems from the fact that up until 1984, when it was voted positively to have a Home Rule Charter, success went into effect in 1986, was that up until that time there was in fact a Sears Roebuck catalog of the kind of governments that people could have. And those catalogs said that for an urban area of 500 population or more, it should be a borough. And they established a franchise, a corporate charter, so to speak, and the charter says we shall become a borough. And that if you were an area that was more rural in character, you became a township. Very highly rural, it would be a township of the third class, second class, or first class, depending upon just what the population was and how much activity there would be within the township itself. The other choices were to become a city, which was the city of the third class. The city of the third class, in effect, it was different because it had 5 commissioners, and they, in turn, those 5 commissioners, one representing each of the major departments of the city, for example, public safety, streets, administration, and so forth and so on. Those 5, they would select the person who they thought would have the titular position of title, and a title of mayor, and then that person become the mayor. In Pennsylvania, we have the unique situation of having something called boroughs, and we also have 2 special charters. Both happen to be Home Rule Charters at this point, but which made them in effect the city of the second class, which is only one, Pittsburgh, and the city of the first class, which is Philadelphia. and it also has its own charter. And as a matter of fact, Norristown's charter pretty well parallels that from the standpoint that it has a strong mayor, it has an active council. Of course, there's a lot more people involved. And the big situation here is what our determination will try to be is if we are elected and we serve on this commission, as to how we can make the government more responsive and more efficient, function more economically. And that's always the challenge for any government. Thank you.
I definitely have to express a special thanks to Mr. DeAngelis. He was the one that educated me on a lot of the home rule charter, so a lot of this introduction I did today came from Mr. DeAngelis. So special thanks to Bill. Now, we'll next hear from Michael Cook.
I'd like to thank you for having this forum. I think it's going to be very helpful to the voters to make a decision on whether they decide to vote in the Charter Reform Commission this time around. I'm very interested in it myself. I think the Charter is a very good document. I think it has good goals. I think it's done a good job in some ways and a bad job in others. Some things I'm personally concerned about. I believe we need to try and streamline government, and I believe one way we can do that is eliminating unnecessary bureaucratic jobs. One job I'd like to see eliminated from, I believe it's in the charter, is the public safety director. Things like that, I don't think we need any extra public safety officials. We have a police chief, a fire chief, a mayor, a borough manager. I'm really not sure how many chiefs you need, but it seems to me we have enough. That's one thing I'm concerned about. Going door to door to get my signatures, people addressed certain concerns to me, one of which was the income tax rate. And they suggested that perhaps we should consider writing something in relating to the income tax into the borough charter. My background is I've been a member and chairman of the Norristown Planning Commission, a long-time West End resident. I've been active in Town Watch, Meals on Wheels, the Preservation Society, and other groups. So I would appreciate public support, and I'm going to be doing my best to move the borough forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was very inspiring. We'll now hear from Joseph Epifanio.
Gary, it's very dangerous to give me a microphone in an audience.
I know that.
As people know, I'm rather outspoken about what the Home Rule Charter really doesn't do. And I think one thing that doesn't help us, sometimes the paper does not get the facts straight. Just before I left in February, I was away for about a month. There was an article in the paper concerning this committee, and it said that council voted against this in 1999. And that's erroneous, because council voted for it and the mayor vetoed it. And a lot of people don't know that. The mayor vetoed this proposal back in 1999. The thing that I feel we also need is a strong nepotism clause. We need many other aspects fixed so that the mayor himself does not have the power that he presently has to make up committees, chooses them, appoints the people to choose the committees, and then appoints the people to approve the committees. So we don't always get people that are qualified to sit on the committees that should be. So that needs to be addressed so we get qualified people. When I was on council for 4 years, I never saw one resume from anybody that was applying for any position or any job. And at the same time, we were expected to vote for those people. Put me on a very bad spot, because I didn't want someone to come into the borough hall and applying for a job and then have this guy, Joe Epifanio, up there say, no, I don't want him, when I didn't know anything about the person. It was an unfair situation we put into. Council people shouldn't be forced into that without having resumes and be able to go in the back room and sit down and talk about who would be the best person. So there's many aspects that has to be refined. It has to get people involved from the community, have an active say. There are so many people that used to attend council meetings that when I got in there and I'd say, how come I don't see it anymore? They would say it's a waste of time to go there. The other thing is it's offering extensive contracts to people. For instance, we're tied up with the trash to steam plant for 20 years. How many of you would give a 20-year contract to anybody to do work on your house or to deliver your oil or anything else? Yeah, I'll do it for a year, see how it works out. Our cable contract is literally a 40-year contract. 40 years. And we're still getting the same lousy service. And why should they care? They have a contract. So all these things have to be addressed one at a time. It's going to be a very tough situation. It's going to be hard. My knowledge of this process is once we come up with something, it has to go back on the ballot, and the people themselves will then have to vote on it. Not council, not the mayor, no one else, but the people of the town will vote on it. It's going to mean a lot of reading, a lot of studying, and I think that there will be, I'm not sure if the committee meetings are open, but I know there have to be open meetings for the public to attend. So it's going to be a long process, and for some people it's going to be inconvenience and whatnot, but I just hope everybody gets behind it, and instead of knocking it, does the best they can to contribute as much as they can, make Norristown a better place in which to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. You brought up something that I forgot to mention earlier, that whatever comes out of this commission does get put back out as a referendum again to be voted on. And this is just the beginning of the process of interaction with the community. So hopefully today we'll just start warming people up to the thought that this is something they need to get themselves involved with. Okay, next we have Lee Peoples. And Lee, stand is yours.
Thank you. Just like to say thank you, and I appreciate the forum. I'm new to attending Borough Council and the borough government and what's going to go on, what they'd like to go on. So if you just bear with me, I appreciate it. I want to say that there are things that need to be accomplished in the borough. The powers need to be away from the mayor. They need to be put out for the citizens of the borough. They need to be able to have a say, to be able to say what they want, it be heard by council, and be acted on, and not, well, the mayor has that power. We need to be able to do this. We need the borough, the council, the residents have to have a say, and if the rules need to be changed and gone over and looked at, then that's what needs to be done. And the residents, the borough taxpayers, the ones that have the problems, have to be the ones to come out, listen to what we have to say, look at what we found, and to vote on it. And if they don't want to do that, then they have no rights to complain. They need to have people who want to look at things, change things, make it a better place to live, and then vote on it and make it that way. If they don't do that, then they have no say, and they really need to be involved. Come to council meetings. Call your local officials and let them know. And then when we're going through, or whoever is voted onto the committee is going through the rules, maybe there is something in there that we can change. Thank you.
Again, very inspiring. Now, we'll hear from Alton Chuli.
I'd like to thank the Norristown Initiative for the opportunity to come. I hope when this does take off that the Times Herald will be more helpful in getting out the message, which they didn't seem to do today. There's no sense getting into what I think and what I don't think, because it's going to be a commission that's set up and we'll go through these items. First of all, I have to get the election to do that. There's only going to be 9 of us on it. There are a few things that I would like to put on the table when the time comes. One of them is a management council type of organization rather than a strong mayor organization. And I'm not really in favor of term limits. I think if somebody's doing a good job, he should stay in office. It has its advantages and disadvantages. We'll have people that can buy some of the votes to stay in office. Some of you may know of Uncle Paul, was in office for 50 years.
60.
But he did his job. He kept his people happy. And people that think so. But he had a ward and he kept them down there. So these are the things that are going to be looked at. There's no sense me saying, you know, I want this and I want that. It's going to be a body of people that's going to put this out on the table for the people of the town to vote on. First of all, like I said, I have to be lucky enough to get the election. That's all I have to say.
You don't believe in pulling punches there, do you, Al?
As it is.
Okay, last of our candidates that we'll hear from today is Mary Ellen DiGregorio.
Hi, thank you. Most of you know who I am, and those that don't, I wear many hats. I was chairman of the Norristown Homeowners Association, which I recently turned over to Jim Daly, and I feel that he will be able to succeed well with the Homeowners Association, so that I could take this position as a candidate for the Home Rule Charter Study. I have also been a member of the Norristown State Hospital Advisory Committee, and I'm also a member of the Norristown Initiative, which I work hand in hand with Gary in providing you these forums on a month-to-month basis. At first, I really didn't want to be here as a speaker because my job in getting everything together, and I just didn't really feel like I would have been prepared to be able to come up and speak to you. But one thing I do want to point out to you is that all the candidates that are on the ballot are very good people that have been a member of this community for a long time. P.D. Perry, he's from the West End, and he's been a member of the community. He's been at council meetings. Some of you have known him. Helen M.C. Jones, she is a very good person that also has represented the community outstandingly. She's a member of our board with the Norristown Initiative. We have April Young, who used to be an ex-councilwoman. She is a very intelligent woman that also has a lot to offer to the community with her knowledge of how the Home Rule Charter operates. Joe Epifanio's wife is also one of the candidates who has been a long-standing member of the community just as long as Joe has. And who else have I? Joe DeDominic, which we were hoping he was going to be here because at the time when I was scheduling everyone, he did say that he was going to definitely wanted to be here. He might be late, so hopefully after we take a break, he might be here for the second half and we can get him to come up to the podium and speak. But as most of you know, I'm more or less behind the scenes person. I'm not used to being out front because my brain operates on the other side of the podium. A lot of times I'm out in the audience at council meetings challenging the council members because I just feel that my role in the community is to make sure that I keep the quality of life within the community. I've been here all my life. I'm 44 years old, and I'm one of these women that have no problem telling you my age, so I have a long standing here in the community. And my parents were born and raised in this community. So I have a great passion for this community. I'm in the process of reviewing the Home Rule Charter booklet. Like I said, one of my tasks was to making sure that this all takes place. So this book here just came to me when I contacted Fichter's office to get the book for everybody else. So I'm in the same process of everybody else is that I just got it to them last night and we're in the process of reviewing it now. So hopefully by the time it comes to election and we find out who the lucky 9 are, we will be versed in the Home Rule Charter. But I thank you all for coming out today. And like I said, there's a great group of people that are on the list, and they all have a lot of knowledge of how the community works and what their idea of what the community should look like in the future. But thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. And as I forgot to mention earlier, and quite frankly, these forums would not be taking place for the last half year due to my outside activities. Mary Ellen's indomitable spirit and willingness to dedicate innumerable hours to the community, I think, speaks for itself. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to take a short break. I haven't heard from all the candidates, and time to go research the coffee cups. Question and answers from the audience. And who's first? Yoli.
Okay. Good morning. First of all, I want to thank all the candidates for showing up. And yes, I think it's extremely important. I think you all answered very nicely. I have several questions. I will start with Mr. Epifanio.
Yes.
You had said that your vision of the council, well, two things that really stuck out for me was you saw the council as the management council. If you could elaborate a little bit what you meant by that?
I'm not sure I used the term management. What I meant was that council in itself has the authority to, approve the budget and do different things, and they even have the authority to create it. But council itself is, in a sense, can be divided. 4 members or 3 members to a precarious point where it can be ineffective.
We've seen that.
And there has to be something put in there, or some restrictions or guidelines that can determine just what they will be able to or allowed to do, permitted to, under the home rule charter. It is now, it's more or less like when they purchased that building up DeKalb Street. They borrowed, first of all, there shouldn't be a non-electoral debt incurred. There should be debt incurred, but the people, anything over the budget should be voted on by the people. That should have gone on to the ballot, and the people should have determined whether or not they should borrow the money. That was the first thing. The second thing was they needed $900,000 to buy the building, and they went out and they borrowed $1.5 million. And no one asked the question, what's the other $600,000 for? So that was $1.5 million additional debt, not budgeted, that 7, 8 people, I guess 9 people, including a business manager, made that decision for the people of this borough. My point is, the people of the borough, anything over the budget should go on to a referendum, and the people themselves should vote whether or not they want to spend that money or borrow that money for that purpose.
Thank you. Gary, do you want me to ask the next person, or do you want me to wait?
You're doing good. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, this question is for Ms. People. First of all, thank you very much. It was refreshing that you admitted that you're new to the system. Thank you very much for that honesty. I really appreciated that. My question that I had is that you alluded to the limitation of the mayor's powers. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I think the mayor has a job to do. He shouldn't be able to control the entire borough by himself without any input. If council puts through, votes on something and they think it's important and he vetoes and he does basically what he wants to do with what he chooses to do, I don't think he should be able to do that. I think it should be a joint effort between council and the mayor, and they work together to make the borough what it needs to be, not just the mayor himself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Yoli. And for those of you who don't know, Yoli is the wife of former Mayor Bill DeAngelis. Okay, and Joe, I want to congratulate you. That was a very good example, I think, of how addressing certain phrases of the charter might help alleviate those type of problems. Richard, do you have a question?
Well, I start with many, I guess, to anybody. The 20th century has proven pretty much that the best form of local government, except maybe in large cities in a few places, including Montgomery County, is council management. Is there any reason that, obviously you need to have a council that supports that, and most of all you need a competent manager. Would you see, I think one of you mentioned that you look at that complete change of office, not just readjusting the powers of the mayor and council. Would that what is so different about Norristown that it wouldn't work? Even in Philadelphia, where you have a strong mayor, you still have a managing director, which has varied over the years, but on the whole, it has been competent.
One part of that problem is right now, the mayor has the authority to fire business manager and any department head without council's approval. So that pretty much puts them in the position of, they better do what the mayor wants, otherwise their job is in jeopardy. And this is the thing, you have to have people being able to be free to say what they really feel and what they really think and implement their ideas, but they're going to be responsible for that position, not people afraid to speak because of the consequences that may follow. So we've got to find, we've got to try to eliminate that sword hanging over Damocles hanging over the head of the department heads. That's one problem I think.
I believe Al was the person who mentioned that. Did you mention that, Al? Being a council manager for?
With the type of home rule charter we have now, we have what we call a strong mayor council.
Too strong,
Well, I don't know if it's too strong. I just know it's a political type thing. If you have a Republican council or a Democratic council and a Republican mayor and a Democratic mayor, then there's no problem. It's when you have different political parties on council versus the mayor. As we've seen in the last budget, when the mayor sued council or council sued the mayor. You know.
Mayor sued
Now,
council.
or?
The mayor sued council.
Okay. With a management council organization, it's true, you still may have more of one party, but more than one person is making a decision. And when the decision is made, there then is no infighting. And right now, we don't have infighting. A few years back, before Mr. DeAngelis was mayor, or I'm sorry, right after we had a mayor that he wanted his solicitor and council wanted their solicitor. And we ended up with the mayor's solicitor. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but we had this conflict between them. So with the management council situation, you'll have 10 people or 7 people, but when it's over with, it's over with. When a decision or a vote has been taken, that's the end of it. Right now, if the mayor doesn't like what the council wants, or the council doesn't like what the mayor wants, and there are 2 different parties, we're back at square one again. That's one of the reasons I like the management type council.
I personally think that the council manager form of government, which Coatesville, the city of Coatesville had, they don't have a mayor, is an interesting form of government. I believe it works very well in many places where it's tried. Personally, I kind of like the idea of having a mayor because I think a mayor is more of a member of the community, whereas a manager is generally a professional hired gun who may do a very good job, may be very competent, but I don't think he has the personal investment in the community that a mayor theoretically has. Of course, that depends on the mayor, but that's a difference there, I think, between having a mayor council and a council manager formula.
Very good comments there. Oh, Bill?
I can suggest that any form of government where the people will work together and reason about how things should be done and recognize that they represent the interest of the public rather than their own interest will function. Benevolent dictatorship will run very well as long as the dictator has the interest of the public in heart. So what you really have is you can't have battles of egos, and you also can't have battles of personal interest. So that if, for example, if the situation is as it was suggested, and if a person feels that they owe their entire position to one person and their loyalty then exists to them, that's a relatively bad situation. On the other hand, if that does happen, if the situation happens where you have a person who's so predominant, so powerful, that that they ignore the interests of everyone else involved, they don't belong there anyway. So the purpose of the Government Study Commission is to see, to analyze all the various approaches from dictatorship on down, which that's not the case, but to analyze all the various approaches you can use, see where we failed, when we have failed, see what's been good, and try to come up with a balance and recognize ultimately it's going to be the public that's going to be able to determine what's going to happen here. And they have to be active enough and well informed enough to be able to determine they have the best possible representation to be present in council, and the best possible representation to be public in front of the whole world.
Very good comments. Michelle, you have a question?
Yes, well, one of the biggest issues, I think, as some of us think, is interpretation, charter interpretation. Some of the words are difficult to interpret, and based on who's reading them, you might get a different interpretation. For example, we've had an issue with the ability to talk to directors. You probably noticed that the directors no longer come to council, but we don't even have any communication with them. As council members, we've been prohibited from speaking to the directors. We've been told that, as the Home Rule Charter states, that we are not to have direct contact with the directors. Well, we might have interpreted that to say something totally different. It might be interpreted by us to say that the Home Rule Charter says that as long as we don't give them orders or direct orders, that we can communicate with them to inquire about different issues for our constituents, which is a necessary, thing for us to do as council members. So that's really one of the issues for us, interpretation.
Well, you're right. There needn't be any interpretation. That clause specifically states that you're not to give them orders. In other words, you're not to direct any of them to do anything specifically for you.
Yes.
But it clearly states that you should be able to speak to any of them anytime, and they should answer your questions pertaining to whatever you have in mind. You're not giving them an order by asking them under what purpose are they doing this, or how much are they going to spend for that. You're entitled to that knowledge. And that's one of the things we will definitely clarify in the revision.
Michelle, I guess you have been asking us questions. My question to council, which we have 3 council people here tonight, would you prefer a strong mayor type home rule that we have now? Or what would not that your decision or answer will tell us what to do, but would you prefer an organization, a management council charter rather than a strong mayor charter?